MCO.
Mr. Speaker, as the last speaker for the opposition on this particular bill, thank you, I'm going to use up my full time, unlike the member of the government who did not use up her full time. And I'll tell you why, Mr. Speaker. And I want to acknowledge the members of the opposition, both Labour and Green, that they have fought tooth and nail to hold the line for democracy for New Zealand. Right through midnight last night and early this morning, including even taking a bit of democracy out to Mana electorate, where Chris Fafoy is campaigning on our behalf. Mr. Speaker, the government has argued that this bill is about keeping local decisions local. That's what the government is arguing.
Order.
They've also...
Just look, the members in full flight here. I'd like to hear what your colleagues having to say.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was in full flight. My wings were about to expand. The government has argued that this bill, sir, is about keeping local decisions local. And I would say to you, Mr. Speaker, that rather what they actually means is keeping local government decisions away from the ratepayers. That's what it's about. They will argue that it's keeping local decisions local, but we are saying, sir, as we understand this bill, it's actually about keeping local government decision-making away from the ratepayers who pay for local government. They've also argued throughout this debate that this bill is about transparency and accountability. And I'm going to reflect to you and repeat perhaps what many other speakers have said in this House, because insofar as the opposition is concerned, Mr. Speaker, this bill does not provide transparency or accountability one iota. I want to say, sir, that this bill ushers a sad day for local democracy, a sad day for local democracy. The public who have been observing these debates will no doubt be asking, why is such an important piece of legislation, such as this bill, being rammed through urgency as the government is now doing with this bill? And organisations such as Grey Power, ratepayers and residents, right throughout this country are asking that question. And I suspect many will come to the conclusion that it is by government design, it is deliberate, it is intentional to not only undermine the opposition's ability to respond, but more importantly, it is to undermine the ability of the wider New Zealand public to react and respond defiantly. That's why it was important, sir, that I acknowledge all of my opposition colleagues for holding the line of democracy throughout this debate and for fighting tooth and nail to hold this lot here accountable. I have a feeling, sir, that many who are listening to these debates will come to the same conclusion that I have reached and my colleagues have reached, that despite the eloquent rhetoric by this government, despite their use of certain key words such as accountability and transparency, this bill does exactly the opposite. The behaviour and language of this government has been designed to lull the New Zealand public into accepting something they would normally not accept, in the same way that a snake uses hypnotism to lull its prey before giving the final and fatal strike. That's what this government has done. And I want to point out why I believe this and why I think so. The first thing, sir, is the water assets. These are important assets right throughout this country. And the reference of water assets was sort of hidden in the Act. This government did not want to allow the public to see what is in their design. Rodney Hyde is allowing private companies to own the water infrastructure of council for up to 35 years. It's privatisation, in spite of what the government denials. It is privatisation. By giving over a valuable asset that generates an income stream by which the ratepayers pay for, what we're actually doing, sir, is giving this valuable source of income to the private sector, and no doubt a select few, perhaps friends of Tau Henare, the millionaire from Te Aratu, as some might say, friends of his, simply so that they can have this ongoing source of income. Who pays for that? It'll be the ratepayers. What happens to the asset at the end of 35 years? No one knows, because the private sector generally, has been my experience, they squeeze out every profit out of an asset and leave it to rot. There is no maintenance. And who will have to pick up the maintenance of that particular asset after 35 years without ongoing looking after the ongoing welfare of that asset? It'll be the ratepayers. It'll be the ratepayers right through this country. The government denies its privatisation, but this is nonsense. How many years would a dam have to be in private ownership before the government called it privatisation? 50? 100? This bill allows private business to own water infrastructure for 35 years. That is a step too far for an activity that is, by his own admission, the Minister's own admission, a core service of local government. Rodney Hyde has already admitted to the New Zealand Herald that he favoured the privatisation of council services, and changes brought about in the Local Government Act 2002 Amendment Bill clearly shows that this is in fact the government's agenda. ACT's policy is clear. They want to see local government services, including roads and piped water, run on a fully commercial basis. But National doesn't have the courage to be upfront with New Zealanders. National MPs have spent the last few months arguing at Select Committee that the bill's long-term contracts for water are not privatisation, and that shifting services to a council-owned company is not corporatisation. Sir, the public, when they see the goings-on by this government, see it as being deceptive politics, to say one thing when they do something else, to also believe in doing something, but handing it over to that 1% party there to conduct their affairs on their behalf. I want to say, sir, in community consultation, this is a significant part that now changes. Instead of the wider community, the ratepayers and citizens of this country being able to participate in the ongoing discussions of issues from beginning to the end outcome of whatever the issue may be, what this bill now does is it now says the local authority has the right to be able to determine whether a citizen can participate in that process or not. I want to say, sir, at one point in time, I used to be the chair of the Council Annual Plan Committee throughout Manukau City. And as somebody that values community participation, I took that committee to every corner of that electorate. And I witnessed with my own eyes many National Party members, many National Party supporters in Botany and Pakuranga who took the time and valued being able to participate in the consultative community process. Well, sir, I want to say to every ratepayer, resident who are a member of this National Party and this government, they will no longer have the right to participate in that consultation process. That right has been taken away from them in this bill and given to a select few on the local authority. It could be the CEO. Well, sir, that is significant in terms of the gutting of local democracy, and that's what this bill does. Finally, sir, community outcomes, that has now been removed from residents and ratepayers and citizens of this country. It's now been given to the local authority to determine what outcomes the community ought to receive. Sir, that is arrogance in its extreme, and that's been displayed by this government throughout this debate. And I say again, this bill overwhelmingly is